we're here at the Tea History Collection, which has a lot of history, and we've got some ladies from Italy, which is known for its fine food and wine. But these two ladies are into their tea, and they're visiting. I think, are they your first Italian customers, Des?
Yes.
Yeah, first from Italy to visit the Tea History Collection. We're doing a little bit of a tea tasting with the 7 regions of Sri Lanka tea. So we're starting up at 6,000 feet above elevation in Nuwara region, and we're working our way down into Udapusalava, into Uva, into Dimulla, into Kandy, into Sabaragamua, and then finally finishing off at sea level in Ruhuna. So we've got a whole spectrum of flavour. So if you guys want to pick up a teaspoon and come through, and I'll give you a quick demonstration of how we taste tea. This is not the way that your mother has taught you how to taste tea. So if this isn't the way you've been taught, but I'll quickly show you. So when we're tasting tea, we want to use a spoon, and we want to get a full spoon of tea, and you want to essentially hoover it into your mouth. So draw in air and taste the whole spectrum of flavour that you've got coming out of each tea. And what you'll notice is that each tea will have its own unique flavour. But when you do this, please don't choke if you do this at home. We have a first aid kit that's been brought, but just be wary, not to hoover it all the way back in and start choking. So guys, please have a taste and tell me what you all think. So you've got your Nuwara tea here, your Lover's Leap. It's a bit astringent. There we are. Where's that first aid kit?
I should know it.
Yeah. Little bit astringent, but yes, as you come through, you'll start to.
A sink there from to clean your spoon.
Yes. So you put a little bit.
Yep, and just hoover. That's it. Not choking.
I like also the fruit notes on this tea. I like the fruity notes.
It's good when you're blending, you can add a bit of this.
I've actually been to Nuwara.
Yes, you have, yeah. What are you telling me? Have a look.
Yeah.
So what are the changes you'd expect by lowering the elevation?
So in each region has its own unique agroclimate. So as you're sitting up at a higher elevation, because you've got wild eucalyptus and mint growing up in that elevation, you start to get those astringent notes coming through in this.
Yeah.
When you come round to Udpus, you drop about 5,000 feet. So the weather pattern is very different, just coming down 1,000 feet, and you get a very tangy flavour from this tea.
Yeah.
A very, very tangy flavour. We've had this specially manufactured actually, so this is not a typical tea that you will get from this region of Udpus. You get that tangy note that comes through. And what's interesting about this one is that it produces tea seasonally in January to February, and then again in July to August. So the tea will peak because you get a dry spell that comes in, and then you get wind. So in Jan, Feb, you get dry spells and you get wind that blow in from the southwest. And then in July, August, you get a dry spell and the wind blows in from the northeast. And both those conditions combined provide ideal peak growing conditions to give you that tangy flavour that comes through.
Nice.
So coming down into the next region, you've got Uva, which is again on the east. And you'll notice here the cup is much, much darker. Part of the reason for that is that the leaf style is very different. Here you've got a very full leaf, here you've got a broken leaf. This is known as broken orange pekoe, very typical of very high-grown teas in Sri Lanka. And this is a seasonal tea from St. James Estate in Uva. And again, this one is picked, is made between July, August. You'll have a very dry spell, you'll have winds that kick in. Now this doesn't happen every year. And this tea is actually from 2019. So, it's a few years old. We've tried to keep it as fresh as possible by keeping it in a triple laminated foil bag. Every year you will not get an Uva season coming. So for example, I think last year we didn't have one. 2020 season was very different to the one that we had in 2019. So if you get good Uva tea, the key really is to buy it. And the Colombo auction will be very active when you get into the next few weeks into July, into August. It'll be active with especially Japanese buyers that will come into Colombo. They will buy these teas and they'll store it, and they'll release a little bit of this into their blends because they're so pungent, they're so aromatic.
Taste.
It'll lift up a
Taste,
blend.
yeah.
So you won't ever drink this as a straight line. It's ideal as a blender. So have a go at this. Very strong, very thick, and you can see that by the cup color anyway, can't you? You know.
Yeah. This is
Very thick on the palate.
Yeah, yeah.
It's not everyone's cup of tea.
Oh, nice.
It's not everyone's cup of tea, but especially Japanese clientele, they love this kind of strong flavor that comes through.
strong and not so bitter. I think also this is interesting.
But the difference in taste in this
Yes.
case, the sweetness
This is
depends
sweet,
also
yeah,
on
yeah.
the leaves. You
Yes,
choose, of
absolutely,
course,
yeah.
Because there are buds here and here.
There's buds here, and also, I mean, it comes down to a lot of the agroclimatic factors around it. I mean,
Yeah.
high forest grows next to a cloud forest, so its tea bushes are bordering a cloud forest. So you know
Okay.
you have that aspect that'll affect teas from this particular estate that you won't get in other parts of Woodpuss. You know.
Tell us about the next one.
So the next one is a very special tea. This is not typical of the Muller teas. If you give someone, usually the Muller makes, you know, BOP, broken orange pecker grades of tea like this. It's, you know, the region where English breakfast teas were first sort of made by Scottish tea planters. But this tea is very different. It's grown on a tea estate called Matakale. It's grown using a Japanese tea bush that was gifted to the estate, known as Benefuki. And the reason it's got this award next to it is that it won the black tea category at last year's Leafies at Fortnum and Mason, and this tea will be sold at Fortnum and Mason in the coming months. So it's a very different tea. It's very aromatic. You get notes of Japanese green tea, but at the same time you also get notes of Sri Lankan made black teas from the west. So it really is a fusion cup of tea. Something that I've never tasted before until we got a sample of this in. If you actually nose the infuser, and I urge you guys to nose all these infusers, this is a very aromatic tea. I mean, have a nose of this, Dennis. Have you smelt anything like this before? Very perfumed.
Wow.
And there's nothing added to this. All these teas are just straight line flavors. This is what nature is creating. So a very perfumed aromatic aroma.
Beautiful aroma.
Beautiful aroma, really nice tea. Very light in cup, very different to this, although they're growing at a similar elevation. And very different to what Matakale is known for. Matakale is known for making quality, black teas for the local market because they make very thick, strong teas. But have a taste of this and tell me what you think, guys. I know that you love it.
I know Matakele. Love it very much.
Yeah,
So
And
is that almost unique in terms
absolutely, yeah.
yeah.
It's just
No one else has done
Yeah.
that.
no one else is doing it, yeah.
It has something of a black Chinese tea.
Yes,
Some kind
yeah.
of black Chinese tea, like Bailing
Oh, wow.
Fucha. It's very similar for the sweetness. And I can tell you, even Italian customers really like it.
Yes, yeah.
Even if they don't know anything about tea, but they taste this and they say, wow.
Something different,
Wow.
isn't it?
Yes,
Something very, very
Really
different.
good.
that's
You know,
really good. That's really good.
Thank you.
I'll send you some of this, Dennis. You
It's
don't.
outstanding. Really nice.
Now coming down to something a bit more, I guess that we would associate with sort of Ceylon tea, and we come down to the region of Kandy. So these are all what we would classify as high-grown teas.
Yep.
Here you've got Kandy region. So Kandy is a city. It's a city as well as a region, and these are mid-grown teas. So these two here are mid-grown, and this is from Kandy. Kandy was one of the first regions in the country to be planted with tea when coffee failed back in 1865. And James Taylor's, estate, Lulcundra, is in Kandy region. This isn't from Lulcundra. This is from an estate known as Craighead in Narvalapitia, which is part of the region. A multi tea, quite different to what you've tasted already. And as you come down in elevation, you'll start to see your tea gets thicker and stronger. The types of tea bushes that are used are different. The climate changes drastically. It's a lot hotter as you're coming further south as opposed to when you're up in Norelia. So something very different. Again, you'll get a big multi-note coming out of this tea. So give this one a go, guys.
Okay.
Wow. This is more bitterness.
More bitterness,
Yes,
more
bitterness,
maltiness
yes,
to it.
yes.
But it's not as thick as some of the low-grown Ruhuna teas are. And a lot of times blenders will use this just to blend down and take out some of the harsh flavour that you might get from a straight line.
But
From a
finally
straight
it's
line.
very refreshing.
First
Noting,
kick.
I would say.
Yeah.
Because it's a pleasant bitterness.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's
You
not,
can add a little.
It's not so much astringent, so it's
Yes.
very pleasant.
You can add a little bit of milk to this as
Yeah.
well, just to take the edge off.
Yeah.
One tea that I probably wouldn't add milk to would be the other mid-grown tea. The other mid-grown region is known as Sabragamur. And these are teas that grow no more than sort of 2,000 feet above elevation. This is an award-winning estate. This is known as New Vithanakanda, and it grows next to a virgin rainforest known as the Singaraja, which is a UNESCO heritage site. What's interesting about teas from these two regions, Ruhuna and also Sabragamur, is that unlike the other mid-grown and high-grown regions, these are mainly picked by smallholder families. So they'll own, tea, maybe their tea land is no more than the area that we're in, or they might have up to half an acre and more. So it's small individual families that go out, that pick leaf, and they will provide that to a factory. And that relationship between smallholder and factory is very, very close. And that'll even go back generations. So New Vithanakanda have been making tea since the 40s. There are producers who have been supplying them since that time, and they're now into the third generation of supplying them with leaf. So a very close relationship.
Tell us about the leaf shape of the last three, because they're all very different, aren't
They're all very different. So, this leaf is known as FBOP, which stands for Flowery Broken Orange Pekoe.
Yep.
This is known as Flowery Fannings Extra Special. And if you look at the black leaf, you've got its black tea and you've got these small silvery tips that run all the way through it. And those are the buds. So when we're hand picking tea, we'll pick the top two leaf in a bud. And because when you're growing tea at a lower elevation, you don't need to add as much as much pressure to the roller, like if you're here in a sort of high-grown environment, you're able to keep these tips, which is why that leaf looks so different. And here, the reason why this one is so different to these two is due to the fact that this leaf style is known as orange pekoe. So Ceylon is famous for its orange pekoes.
Yep.
But this is a very different type of orange pekoe, because I guess a lot of the orange pekoes that people would have tasted in yesteryear would come from the high-grown sector. This is a low-grown orange pekoe, which is why that cup color too is much lighter compared to this one here, although this is growing at a lower elevation. And that's down to the leaf size. So the larger the leaf size, the lighter your cup of tea will be in general, which is why, although this is grown at 5,000, the smaller the leaf size, you've got the darkest cup of tea here. So that's a general rule. People seem to think the larger the leaf, the better the quality of tea. You can get good orange pekoe and you can get really bad orange pekoe. At the same time, you can get good broken orange pekoe and really bad broken orange pekoe.
Yeah.
So leaf style does not determine the quality of a cup of tea, Generally, a larger leaf style will give you a lighter cup of tea. That's the way you should go on. So if you want to have a breakfast tea, that's probably not the one for you.
Yeah. I know New Vithanakanda. In Italy, New Vithanakanda, we mix it with Italian ham and cheese. It's delicious. I don't know if you match tea with food. We could try with food, but this is perfect with savory food.
Very
we make
good.
tasting with cheese, Italian cheese, Italian hams, and this cold brew, not hot, but cold brew with cold water,
Yeah.
a temperatura, room temperature. You keep it 20 minutes, room temperature, and you mix with savory food. It's delicious. You have to try instead of wine.
Making me hungry.
Really delicious. No, it's perfect.
It's worth a trip to use.
Yeah.
One of my favorites.
Yeah.
We did it in a winery.
Yes.
Yeah.
Winery production.
Yeah.
So we had wine and New Vithanakanda tea.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it was very interesting.
And you get the aroma coming through when you have it out of the wine glass, actually,
Oh, you
Yes.
as opposed to having it out of this. A little bit thicker. And then finally,
Delicious.
you've got the Ruhuna tea, which is
Barambula, yes.
Barabula.
Lawyer.
Yes. So what Fabiola is referring to is that the founder of this tea estate, Mr. Douglas Jayavikrama, he was notorious for his strict standards, and he would call the brokers, and people were so afraid of him that back in the day when they would answer the phone, they would actually get up off the seat and stand to attention because they were that afraid of the man. So those were his standards, and his the standards live on in the cup of tea because it makes a fantastic cup of orange pekoe. So a little snapshot of what Ceylon or Sri Lanka has to offer consumers out there. So
Try that.
yeah. Might be standing to attention after you have it there.
Really
Oh, that's
lovely.
lovely.
Which is your favourite, Dennis?
I think this one, because it's the most unusual.
Yeah,
Welcome in the club.
yeah. It's so different.
Really, really unique.
Yeah, unique.
Possibly worldwide unique.
Yes, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
Hasn't been done anywhere else,
No.
so yeah.
fantastic.
There we are.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you very much.
An amazing array of Ceylon teas. And
Absolutely.
you are officially now our expert for the tea history collection.
Thank you very much.
We'll adopt you as our Ceylon expert.
Absolutely, yeah. Well, I told you I was going to come up. I think we met last year, wasn't it? Was it the year before? And I said I'll come and do your book collection, which I will. I'll come and do that and bring some other
Fantastic.
bits for you as well. So, yeah.
Fantastic.